Well, greetings, everyone. It is once again Thursday night, and it is time for the Sports Crib. Well, I guess you might not see it, but we're all sitting here with egg in our face, like most of America. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Of course, I don't know if anybody replayed last week's show or not, but we were over. So we'll definitely talk about that. But today was the start of baseball season. As we know, last year there were some problems, and we're starting this year with not having a lot of solutions to some of those problems of last year. But it's the first day of the season, so Frank, what's your take on that, my man? What's going on? Can you hear me? I see you with your. Looks like he's frozen here for a minute. Bill?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
What's your take on the first day of baseball season?
It doesn't seem right. That's the I've got 5.5 inches of snow outside. Basketball just started also. I mean, like it's just wrong. I mean, it's February the 11th. It's something like 11 degrees outside. Like, what do you mean baseball? I don't know. I mean, no. I flat out reject the premise. No. There it is. That's my answer. No.
You mean the Cubs don't have an opening day at home?
That would be hilarious if they did. A great traditional, old time outdoor ballpark, and I could just see the crew out there, with the snow blowers between innings. That would be amazing. Amazing.
Yeah. COVID has led to a lot of things, but like you said, baseball. It's February 11th, and you're talking about, where are you playing?
I mean, if they want to play dome stadia and places where they can promise it will be at least 40 degrees, I guess you could kind of try to pull it off. But you can't play it. You can't play in Milwaukee. You sure as heck can't play in either Wrigley or, what's it called, guaranteed rate, I guess, whatever. I still call it Comiskey. I mean, there's certain places you just can't play. Like, no. The answer is no. I said no, James, and I meant no.
Hey, Frank, what are the Detroit Tigers doing for opening day?
What are the Detroit Tigers doing? More than likely losing, but
hey-o!
It's spinning your wheels is what the Detroit Tigers are doing. I'm not sure exactly what context we're talking about, but normally when we're talking about the Detroit Tigers, they're spinning their wheels.
No, we're talking about in the sense of February the 11th, opening day for baseball.
What? Huh? Yeah. I saw that. Does that mean pitchers and catchers report? Well, no, you're going to play a game. What? Okay. I've lost all sense of reality now. I mean, yeah, I know, like the Indians. I think there's snow in Ohio, a lot of snow, or the Cleveland baseball team, or whatever we're calling them now. There's no way.
What about the Pittsburgh Pirates? Where they?
Yeah, they're under snow too. At least the Blue Jays can play in Orlando or wherever they're going to join the basketball team. But I don't. I mean, you've got to start thinking seriously about, okay, what are these people thinking about? Are they serious about this? have they thought this through? And I understand that there are problems that we have to adjust to, but let's make, intelligent adjustments. I thought the bubble was insane, but it worked. At least they plotted through it. But, baseball's an outdoor sport. It's not like the soccer hooligans that have, been drinking for 4 hours before the game so they don't feel the cold. This is baseball. It's, sunflower seeds and tobacco juice. They're not taking anything in to keep them warm.
Yeah. It was just amazing. I looked at the headlines and, I'm like, well, you don't really mean the start of baseball season, right? Like you say, stranger things have happened, but, I guess.
And the powers that be know better than I do. They've researched this. They've done their homework. They know better than I do. I've always said that. They know what they're doing. I'm guessing. But I think they're guessing.
I think this might be something that for the accountants, I don't think this was actually based in reality.
Right.
We went through, what did they call it when the Oakland A's put those guys together?
Moneyball?
Moneyball?
Yeah, so now I guess we'll go through Snowball, literally. But
this seems to me more like Charlie Finley saying, okay, I've had enough. I'm selling off the team. Let's just do whatever. There are no rules. It's the wild, wild west. Whatever I want to do, somebody stop me. But this is Major League Baseball saying, hey, you guys want to play now, don't you? You want to get paid, don't you? Yeah. Go out there and play in the snow. It's okay.
Yeah, both New York stadiums, I don't think you're going to be playing in. Don't see anything really happening for the Red Sox. Let's see. Anywhere else we can go?
Baltimore? Washington?
all of the outdoor name all the outdoor facilities, particularly those that are above the Mason-Dixon line, are going to be hilarious, is the word I think I might try to use to try to play baseball in February, or heck, even most of March. You can't trust March in Chicago or Wisconsin there's going to be a day in March where I promise you're going to get half a foot of snow somewhere where they're going to try to play baseball. No, I reject the premise. I go back to my original statement. My answer is no.
Well, okay. I was an athletic director and a tennis coach, basketball coach in North Central Ohio. And our tennis season was supposed to start after Easter. That was the day when we were scheduling games. And I was lucky to get a practice outdoors before Easter. An actual practice where we could have everybody in the courts, where we weren't shoveling snow the entire time. And then we backloaded, at least when I became the athletic director, we backloaded the schedule because we knew the first week or 2 or 3, we weren't going to play. So we scheduled maybe one match. No one would have to reschedule that later. And that was when we could get our practice in. But there is no way you're thinking about, hey, we can go out and play an actual baseball game in the Midwest. And, everyone's got to have to put a dome up in the next 2 weeks.
When you think of sports and you think of, just think of some of the baseball purists out there, old guys, that's they base their life on the season,
Right.
Old guys still follow baseballs, and even what do you tell a little leaguer,
Go out and shovel the snow, Johnny. You got second base.
Man.
We're having practice. Get a shovel from your dad. Let's go. But on the shortstop, you got the shortstop area. Catcher's got to catch shovel out home plate. Left field's got a lot to do.
In center field, you got a lot of ground to cover.
I want to be the DH this week, Coach. I don't want to play in the field. I just want to shovel off the batter's box and let's go.
Oh man, it's. I guess it's a good way to segue into basketball because we are talking about an all-star game, March 7th, I believe, unless things have changed somewhere around in there. LeBron and some of the other players are saying that the all-star game is totally unnecessary.
Welcome to the club, LeBron.
When you consider, the health of America, the current COVID crisis, and the fact of not having fans or not having enough fans, or maybe you get Atlanta Karen and her friends decide to come, just to see LeBron again, make personal apologies and whatnot, But Bill, you seem to have a very strong opinion about this matter. So why don't you start us off here?
I mean, you could baseball is sort of the great exception because you still sometimes will get some great all-star game matchups occasionally. But in hockey, it's fun to watch, kind of, sort of, but, it's not hockey because guys don't, nobody's getting taken into the boards. Nobody's getting cross-checked. I mean, it's basically a not very physical practice game. And then basketball is a joke. I mean, the NBA as a whole has sort of backed off the defensive intensity, but the All-Star game takes it to its logical, I guess, conclusion. And then football is such a difficult sport because it'd be like having like an all-star UFC tournament where you're trying to hurt each other. It's a difficult sport to play without injuring people. And so when you say, hey, guys, go out there and play, but don't hurt anybody, it's like, all right. I mean, we all remember, Sean Taylor blowing up Brian Morbid, one, because it's the last time a guy got really, just destroyed, right? We haven't seen it since. And sadly, Sean Taylor has been gone from us for, is it 15 years, 16 years, some crazy number, some number that will upset me if I actually realize how long it's been. So it's been that long since someone's really gotten drilled, in what's supposed to be a football game. I would be fine with them. I mean, I think they played video games this year. I'd be fine if they had like a skills competition, a video game, and match races and, quarterbacks throwing at, I don't know, Dixie cups or whatever, whatever. Wide receivers running through a little slalom course or going one-on-ones against D-backs, whatever. What else? I mean, it's so hard to play football, really play football. Anyone who's played football once in their lives. I mean, I'll never forget Charles Barkley, right? A guy we think of as a world-class athlete. He said, the worst day of my life was the day I tried to play football. He said, I've had a good life, but I've had one really bad day, and that was the day I tried to play football. Football is just a sport that is so hard to play. And basketball's all-star game is, I mean, if you've been there, you know what it's really about. It's about the after parties and these women who, I don't know where they come from, I guess everywhere, who show up and are just, I mean, astonishing. No offense to the women we think are beautiful in our lives and around us, and they are beautiful. But this is a whole different level of, this is ridiculous. This is, once again, clearly this is like the Olympics of fine women. And the people we see are at least medalists, right? The ones who couldn't get through the qualifying heats are, stuck at someplace else. So this is the crib de la crib that are the NBA All-Star game. No offense to the women that go to the NFL draft or wherever it is. Something about NBA All-Star game. No, it's ludicrous. It doesn't make any sense. How is this possible? There's this many women that look like this. So without that, you extract out the top, I guess, 2% of the most beautiful women on the planet, and the after parties and Puffy, whatever event he's throwing, and whatever event that Ja Rule is throwing, and all the stuff that usually goes on, all stuff, 2 Chainz and whoever else. I mean, what's the point? You know what I mean? Like, if you're not going to be able to do all that, because the game isn't really worth anything. So if you're not going to have all the after parties and all the before parties and the during parties and the pre-show and the whatever else, I mean, I used to love the NBA All-Star Game. I used to love the Pro Bowl, even if you want to go back far enough. And the All-Star Game in baseball, which is still kind of the king of the hill, if it's a very low hill, but still kind of the king of the hill of all the All-Star Games. I used to love them. I used to go crazy for these things. I used to look forward to the Pro Bowl, which sounds ludicrous to me when I say it to myself out loud now. But, I remember when I would root for guys to make it, like, oh man, Jeff Seaman finally made it. Like guys who I knew, because it took 2 years after you earned it to make it in the old days. Right. So it's like, okay, he's earned it for 2 years. Oh, he got hurt. Damn. Now he has to wait another 2 years. I mean, there's guys who were great players who'd only make the Pro Bowl once or twice in their career because they'd be stuck behind some other great player at their position. And guys wanted to play in it, believe it or not. Like, one day we'll be explained to our grandchildren. I guess some of you may already be explained. There was a time when players looked forward to playing in the Pro Bowl. It sounds like fiction. But yeah, if they scrap the NBA All-Star Game, you know how much I'll miss it? I will forget. I will literally forget that they were supposed to have one. And I hate to say that. Like, I don't feel proud of that, but I will actually forget that it was supposed to happen. If they didn't have it, someone will have to remind me that they were supposed to have one.
Right. Very interesting, some of the things that Bill was saying. I remember when the All-Star Game also meant that you had arrived. It was a badge of distinction. You actually played for home field, home court, as far as the NBA title was concerned. What do you think? When you think about the history and some of the other things behind it, what do you think about the way things have turned out when it comes
I'll piggyback a little bit on what Bill said. It used to be, you would go to the Pro Bowl and say, or you got the news, I get to go to Hawaii to play football against the best. Oh my, because a trip to Hawaii wasn't, half of a week's paycheck then. They're paying for me to go to Hawaii and play football. I may never do this again. And that's what you did. Now it's like, I can go to Hawaii whenever I want to. I can go next week, I can go next month. I have to play football. I don't care. The NBA All-Star Game, and you said it perfectly, it was a rite of passage. You didn't get in on that first good season. You had to get in 2 or 3 seasons in. You had to exceed what the established players have done for a while. So if you thought, hey, I'm better than Dominique, great. You got to prove it over time. Dominique has to come out of the game for you to go in. It's not like you just get voted in, you're somebody. If you wanted to make that game, Bernard King had to not make the game. He had to be hurt. There were 15 spots on each team or 12 or whatever it was, and they were pretty much set every year. It wasn't like, oh, we had a rookie game, we've got this, we've got that. These are the people that are established all-stars, and you have to be playing at an extraordinary level to get into that game and to take somebody out. And then when you get there, you walk in the locker room and you go, there's and that's somebody, and they had to accept you into the fraternity. You just didn't walk in like, yeah, I'm here. It's like, okay, what do you guys want me to do? Carry water, get towels? Can I get a shot off this week? It was much more being part of the fraternity of basketball players. And like you said, they played the game. If I want to see a game that's 145 to 139, I'll watch the Nets play. I don't need to go see that. I don't want to see that. I can watch an and one tape or whatever and see a guy going down the lane with nobody guarding him and do a 360 dunk. I can see that any place. They don't play the game the way the game should be played, or they don't play the game the way it's played in a regular season. And I won't even get into how I think they play in the regular season now. Not to be an old graybeard fuddy-duddy, but they don't play the game the way – and again, you don't have them – I don't think they respect or seem to respect the guys that paved the way for them. If you were to go back, say, to the 80s and George Mikan walked in the locker room like, oh, my God, it's George Mikan. Oh, my God. They're like, this guy paved the way. You have these guys come in now, and Scottie Pippen comes in. Well, bad example, he's on TV. But some of these guys that aren't on TV, they go, Alvin Robertson, I never heard of him. Who's he? He played in an All-Star game. I've never heard of him. Really? Well, he wasn't a star, but he made All-Star games. Oh, Fat Lever, never heard of him. I don't know who he is. Fat, his name is Fat? Really? Yeah. He was an All-Star? Yeah. I've never heard of him. Well, he played in Denver. Oh, well, that explains. No one ever came out of Denver. They don't know them. They're not historians of the game, so they don't respect this particular game. And the other side of this, which I agree with wholeheartedly, because this is a fluid situation that we've had since the bubble of last year. I don't know whether anyone told LeBron or anyone else we're not going to have an All-Star game because, let's face it, we're jamming all these games back to back to back to back to back for you. We can do without the All-Star game one season, but they can do without the All-Star game for one season. They agreed to start the season 8 minutes after the last season ended, and then they're going to try and play this grand schedule, and we're losing a game here, we're losing a player there, they're yanking a guy off the court, something's happening here and there. A nice break wouldn't be a bad thing. And maybe during that break, you say, well, we're concerned about a game that we lost here, a game we lost there, or something. You postpone a game and play it during the break. Maybe that's what you do. But there's no need for this game. And granted, it's a break for some people, but it's a break for the same people that had a break during the bubble because they weren't making the playoffs or making the finals. And I can understand the idea of, well, the All-Stars are the ones that are concerned about it. LeBron, Anthony Davis, those guys, because they've played. Well, yes, they should be. And if you set up your league to be centered around these stars, which is what you do when you advertise a game, it's LeBron James versus whomever. It's not like, hey, it's Devin Booker playing against Trae Young. You're not doing it that way. You're bringing out LeBron versus boom, Embiid versus so-and-so. So you owe it to them, I think, in this season, just to give them a break, if that's what they want. If they don't want a break, then fine. And this is where the communication has to come. I don't think LeBron cares. LeBron's in shape, so I don't think he may say something about it now, but he's still going to play. He's going to give it his all. He's in shape. He's not as concerned, but he would like to have some time. But I think we've gone overboard with saying, hey, let's just keep rolling the product out there. People are going to buy it. Even though we will, it doesn't mean they have to keep doing it.
Well, I'm going to stick on LeBron. I was going to switch off, but let's stay on LeBron for a minute there, Frank. It seems that when you look at the Lakers' last 3 games, LeBron's played 40 minutes or 40 minutes plus. They've had triple overtime. 3 games where they had to go overtime. And when you look at the way the team is playing right now, well, excuse me, as always, LeBron is a very integral part. And right now, as usual, he's carrying the team on his back. And as you say, LeBron's in shape, but this is not, he's not exactly Tom Brady, 43, but for a basketball player, he has had a hell of a run, to say the least. Do you think that, the fact that you have LeBron playing all of these minutes at such an early time, do you think that, this is the time for time management, not later on in the season? If you're putting that much of a strain on him now, uh, what do you think about the long term effects? Or is this just a short term goal of, all we need to do is get there. As long as we're in eighth place, we're good.
Well, I'm going to paraphrase Wilt Chamberlain, who I believe one season averaged 48.5 minutes a game, more than regulation. And basically what he said was, I can't score sitting on the bench. It's if I can go, I'm going to go. And this may be a Frank Vogel thing. I don't know. But I would think, again, the cachet that LeBron has, they're not wearing him out against his will. Let's put it that way. If LeBron says, I need some more rest, he's going to get some more rest. If LeBron says, I want to play, he's going to play. If LeBron says, I want to play the entire game and I want to play point guard and drive the team bus, he'll hear the keys. Whatever he wants to do, they're going to let him do. So from our perspective, yes, load management and all that stuff, because we're getting used to that. As Bill just alluded to, there used to be a time when, in the age of men, when it was an insult to come off the court. It was an insult to, have the backup play. It's like if you're starting Hamlet, you go out there and you do Hamlet every night of the week. You don't have the understudy come out just because you're feeling a little peakish. It's like, I got a pulled hamstring. I want to have the other guy do Hamlet. No, it's not the way it works. You go out there and you put your time in. And, if that's the way he feels, because I think he's a throwback, which is an odd thing to say when I think about it, but I think he's a throwback, that if he wants to play, they're going to play him. Now, they have to come to some understanding between himself and the squad and the management. Like, can you do this all season? And I bet you what he says is, well, I could have if I got that week break that was supposed to be the non-All-Star game. But that's another story for another time.
Bill, sometimes in the boxing game, you have to save a boxer from himself. Is this the case with LeBron?
So there are certain things we keep saying, right? Somebody mentioned Brady. We keep saying there's going to come a year when Brady falls off the cliff. There's going to be a year where you have to play LeBron less. We've said it for a few years in a row about both. And thus far, we've been wrong about both. I think I predicted a couple of years ago that they were going to have to reduce LeBron's minutes. LeBron was like, hold my beer. So,
or my protein shake or whatever it is. Right?
Whatever it is, right? Well, I mean, he and his sons apparently enjoy red wine. So I guess hold my rosé or whatever.
Yeah.
My point is that every year we say this. LeBron can't play this many minutes. He can't handle the ball this much. He's going to have to play different, play smarter, not harder, blah, blah, blah. And then somehow it doesn't happen. So I could do what I've done the last few years and predict again that LeBron's going to play minutes and have to come off the ball some. So I could do that, but I'm not. I'm going to try something different. Maybe we'll see. I think LeBron's going to play a lot of minutes. I think he's going to handle the ball a lot. And then when he realizes he's really wearing down, he'll play less and will handle the ball less until he feels better again. And he'll go right back to playing a whole lot of minutes and handling the ball more. He's at a point in his career where he really knows his body well. And he and his team, I guess we can call them, the LeBron maintenance people, really know what they're doing. I mean, I think it's time that we talked about like the TB12 people who are, basically they have a whole documentary, right? Tom versus Time. They could do, LeBron versus whatever it is he's going up against, LeBron versus Lag, whatever it is fighting. He's successfully managed to be a big man who plays usually small man basketball in a big man's body, guards a lot of small people, plays a lot of minutes, runs the offense, dribbles a lot, passes a lot, plays good defense. He's done these things at a high level for longer than – it's a short list of guys who've been this good for this long, and none of them played like LeBron, actually. Like all the guys who've been this good this long were either big men, right, Kareem and a handful of other big men, or really, really small men, like little guards, who managed to be really good for a really long time. But they weren't doing some of the stuff LeBron does. They didn't spend a lot of time banging, because they were playing on the perimeter virtually all the time. LeBron is a unicorn, sui generis, pick a term. Like he's different. So all the things I would say about, if we're talking about Paul Pierce or whatever, all the things I've been saying would apply, right? I would be correct also, because Paul Pierce at the end of his career looked like a very old man. I mean, very old man, like older than he actually was. And that's normal. Like when guys play a lot, toward the end of the career, they look like guys who've played a lot usually. Go, oh, that poor bastard, but look at him. Geez, it's hard to believe he used to be Paul Pierce. But for whatever reason, it hasn't happened to LeBron. He's not doing the things that we normally see guys when they go into what we call end stage, right? I love Vince Carter, but the last couple of years of Vince Carter's career, he could still do Vince Carter things, but not as often and not as well. And we could say this about whoever, even Tim Duncan, who didn't play as demanding a brand of basketball as LeBron, towards the end looked old. Tony Parker towards the end looked old. Steve Nash, pick a guy, right? All the great players we think of, even Mike, obviously in the Wizards version of Mike, looked old, So it hasn't happened to LeBron yet. And, it will have to eventually happen, but I'm not about to go down that road again this year. Ask me again next year, James.
Okay. Well, okay. What if I asked you about Carmelo? Excuse me. What if I asked you about that guy up there in Portland? Came from New York, went through a whole lot of things, but he just passed. Was it Akeem on the scoring list? Moved up to number 12.
Yes.
So,
yes. That's a guy who got old fast too. We're talking about guys who were like, people blamed it on marrying an 18-year-old or whatever. I don't know if has anything to do with it, but Akeem went from being maybe for a while the best all-around big man in the game to a guy that couldn't start in a very short time period. But first of all, Carmelo is a guy who he didn't get old fast. Just the game changed out from under him. He was a great mid-range scorer who was a decent passer for a big man, and he didn't embarrass himself on defense, but he wasn't exactly a stopper. And he moved reasonably well. He was a guy that in the basketball of, it sounds funny to say this, but of 15 years ago was a superstar, right? And then even 10 years ago was a star. And then about 3 years ago, people were like, yeah, I'll pass. And so it wasn't he got old or whatever so much as just the game changed. The game changed. Think of all the great players of the past. What would Dave DeBusschere do in the league nowadays? You know what I'm saying? Like he would be deep down on most teams' benches. He would be like a 9th, 10th guy off the bench. Because unless he improved his shooting range, I guess if he could hit threes, he could get some playing time. But the game changed. So, your guy whose best part of your game is 15 feet away from the basket? Ew. You know what I mean? Like all of a sudden, people were disgusted by that. Like, why are you taking almost 15 to 18-foot shots from the elbow? Ew. Fuck. Suddenly there was just no stomach for that. Now, there's still a place for that in the game. Even now, there's a place for that in the game. But suddenly it got unattractive. A guy went from being a superstar to just like, anybody want this? You? No. You? It was like sometimes at the office potluck, somebody will bring, like hummus or baba ganoush or something. And people aren't quite sure what to make of it. Like people are eating the living daylights out of the macaroni and cheese and and people, the little, pig in a blanket. Those are going like hotcakes. Oh, mini quiches. And then it's like, I'm not sure what this is. And so he sat there like the hummus, at the office Christmas party or whatever. And finally someone said, I can do something with this. And so now someone has figured out a way to eat the hummus.
I'm not sure if Melo wants to be compared to hummus, but
I didn't want to have to compare him to hummus, but here we are.
Frank.
Well, it's also, and again, tying this to LeBron, and not to denigrate Carmelo, not at all, but because I've done that on other shows at other times, so I won't do it again today. But to look compared to LeBron plays when LeBron's on the court, even though they say he slowed down his pace of play, LeBron plays every second of every possession, just about, offensively, defensively. He's in passing lanes. He's handling the ball. He's making passes. He's getting rebounds. The guys that have lasted a long time were usually one or two dimensional players. Kareem at the end, skyhook or nothing. I mean, he had to play some defense, but he didn't come out. He wasn't setting screens and running through stuff. And all. I'm going to set up on the block. You give me the ball. I'm going to shoot the skyhook. What else are you going to do? Well, that's about it. You guys do everything else. Who we have guys that played a lot of minutes. Robert Parrish, one of the leaders in minutes played. Kevin Willis, one of the leaders in minutes played. They were basically who they were. They're going to be low post defenders, and at the end, get a shot. That's about it, if they get one. Melo is an offensive player. Give me the ball. I'm going to take some shots. What else are you going to do? Well, at this point, I might stick my hand in the passing lane every now and then. Not to say he's not playing defense, but when you need a stop, you're not saying, Melo, go get that guy. I'm not sure if you ever did. So that what are you doing now kind of thing, how are you going to last longer? Did you see Vince Carter in the last 3 years flying through the lane, dunking on people? No, Vince Carter became a spot-up three-point shooter. He did a very good job of it, but that's what he became. So when you start looking at these guys and you're making that comparison to LeBron, or you're saying the comparison to Carmelo, it's like, Carmelo, what are you going to do for us? I mean, this is why Joe Johnson still wants to be in the league. I can take anybody off the dribble. I can play anybody, ISO Joe. What else are you going to do? Give me 4 minutes, I'm good. That's about it. You've got a Lou Williams or a lot of guys like that are like, what can you do? Nowitzki his last couple of years, he wasn't getting rebounds. He was shooting one-legged jumpers and then stumbling down the court, doing it very well, but that was about it. So part of the aging process is, can you fit into a niche? And the thing that's impressive about LeBron, his niche is everything. And you got to love Carmelo for sticking it out, because I thought he was done. I really did. And as Bill said, he was the hummus nobody wanted. He fits there. And they're asking him to do a certain thing. And he's like, hey, you just want me to put the ball in the hole for a few minutes at a time? I'm with that. But it's hard to see other people being able to stick around. It was like watching Shaq the last 4 or 5 years when he was playing with Saskatchewan or wherever the hell he was at. I'm like, what are you doing on this team? Are you just trying to take a check? Why? Do you know who you are? Do you know what the name on the back of that jersey says? And you're wearing number 43 or whatever? Get off the court. You see young Shaq in Orlando, and then you see him playing in Phoenix. Why? Is there a point to this? And again, like you said, Olajuwon. Olajuwon's playing in Toronto? Huh? Patrick Ewing's in Orlando? I had to look that up. I didn't even remember. He was on that? What? No. It's like watching Dwight Howard now in wherever he is now, Saskatoon or what is it, Philly now. It's like, well, he's in disguise because he doesn't have, like Dwight Howard. And when you start touting these people, Dwight Howard, future Hall of Famer, like from when? Where's the cutoff? He had a nice run in Orlando for about 3.5 years. And then what's happened then? And again, it's a tough league to stick in. I get that. It's a tough league to make your mark in. And it's a great league if you want to get paid. So I can understand sticking around 5 or 6 years past when you should have gotten out. But now we're giving accolades to people that are just average players. and Carmelo does what he does at a better clip than an average player, but the rest of his game is kind of subpar. So, if you can do that, if your ego allows you to do that, if you love the game so much, again, I love the attitude Vince Carter had for the last 2 or 3 seasons. Like, I want to play, and I'm willing to accept a reduced role with reduced mobility and physicality. I'm cool with that. I'm not sure a lot of them are, but again, that payday comes around and going, yeah, I can do this for a couple more years.
Speaking of that paycheck coming around, we talked about the Ball family last week, and we're talking about the number 1 rookie. But what's Lonzo going to do next year, Frank?
Well, I look at my older brother, and I'm thinking, would he ever come to me for a loan? I don't know about that. But that's look, Lonzo is still a serviceable professional basketball player. As the former number 2 pick, we have to actually take it with a grain of salt what that actually means anymore. Does being a high draft pick mean you can play? And the rosters are littered with guys that were number 1, number 2, number 5 picks that are serviceable basketball players. If he's willing to do that and willing to become, I said Alvin Robertson, I don't know why that comes to mind, but somebody that's like, okay, you're going to play some D, you're going to pass the ball, you ain't shooting it, you ain't doing anything else, and that's it. Now, if he's willing to become that guy, a pass-first point guard, and teams are willing to accept that as that guy on coming off the bench, the next wave of players, go out, sick him, Lonzo, go do it. And he's willing to accept that, cool. He can survive in this league for another 10, 12 years. But if he's got to be the number 2 overall pick, the D'Angelo Russell that bounced in 3 or 4 different spots, can he become Chauncey Billups and be the number 2 or 3 pick? And then, I don't know. He looks more like Antonio Daniels to me, but that's another draft from 20 years ago or 30 years ago, what the hell it was. But it's the idea of, can you still be in the league 10 years from now and get by, averaging 5, 2, and 1? Can you deal with that?
Frank, you came very close to be banned putting Chauncey Billups and Lonzo Ball in the same sentence.
But you know why I said that. Chauncey bounced a few times before he became Chauncey Billups.
Yeah. Right.
He bounced a couple of times before he became Chauncey Billups. So I would be willing to say that from the outside point of view, Lonzo Ball is kind of in the same position idea-wise that Chauncey was when he was in Denver. It's like, oh, really? He's a bust. And I don't like to use that word with anybody. And then he gets to Detroit and is like, I'm leading the show, let's go. So I have nothing but the utmost respect for Chauncey Billups, and I will never say anything bad about him other than to say before he got to Detroit, it didn't look good. But you knew he could play, but it didn't look good. Now, that's the thing is, are you looking at Lonzo Ball saying, in the right situation, he's a, no pun intended, baller. I don't know if there's a right situation for him to become that guy that you associate with being a high draft pick. I don't know if he's got the game. But then I said that when he's at UCLA, so I'm not saying anything different. Of course, I said the same thing about his brother, and his brother's looking pretty good now. So I'm not 100% on these things. But I know that I said and it wasn't about the shot. It was about the game. He looked good in a free-flowing, go out there and you've got the ball kind of situation. Exactly. That's what that UCLA team was, basically. Yep. Are we going to coach him? Nah, just go out and run around and do what you got to do. We got talent. Let's go. Where's I can't even remember who was the other guy on the team that was supposed to be a stud that I haven't heard from since then. Not Alford's kid, but the other guy. I mean, he was being touted as a great player too, and I think he was a late first, early second round pick. And now I don't even know if he ever played a minute in the league. because, as you said, that AAU mentality of how do you get the job done is different than doing it in the league. And I don't know if he's willing to learn. I don't know if he's willing to teach him.
Bill, he is what we thought he was, at least to me. I was I kind of thought that in the beginning, when he was with the Lakers, that the whole relationship got off wrong because of the Magic thing and whatnot. But then I'm looking at him in New Orleans, and he's made some improvements, but I don't see where he's made enough improvements for them to keep him. I mean, what's your thoughts? Is he going to be a Pelican next year? Or is he going to be, like Frank says, he's going to be borrowing money from his little brother?
Well, I don't know if he'll have to borrow money from anybody because there's always a demand for guys with quote unquote upside and potential and all that cool stuff that keeps getting people fired. But he might be trade bait. It depends on what somebody's willing to give up to have him on their team, and are they in contention and things like that. But I think they're bringing him back unless they can find a better opportunity, where they can get something back that makes, or, whether it be a picks or players or combination that makes them feel like they got a good deal. We pick on him at least in part because his father made them all very pick-onable. But there's a lot of players like him in the league now. He's just the one that crystallizes it so clearly. We can see it so clearly. The whole, what I call the AAUization of the NBA. He's just one of the clearest examples of it. But there's many others. You can find I would say probably 80% of the teams in the league have at least one guy like him somewhere on the roster. A guy that people started talking about how good he was going to be probably when he was, 11 or 12 years old, and it never lets up, right? And as long as that person doesn't either have a catastrophic injury or just quit playing basketball, the hype train, or what we would call it, continues to roll down the tracks until eventually this person's a lottery pick or close to a lottery pick, and they're sometimes they end up playing right away. Sometimes they end up in the G League. Sometimes they end up bouncing around. But either way, there's this the belief in them doesn't waver, even if there's lots of data to tell you that maybe you were too high on this player. So he's going to have a home in the NBA for several more years. And I think the only thing that prevents him from being with the Pelicans is, as I said before, the trade market, or something that makes them say we're getting back is worth more than we get for keeping him. And there's so many players, like I said, we could say the same thing about these young guys come into the league with just the smallest inkling of how to play the game, right? Most of these players are spending, obviously on the extreme end of the scale, we have guys like Kyrie. I think Kyrie played 6 games at Duke, something crazy. I know it was a crazily low number. So some of these guys, barely unpacked their bags while they were in college, right? And so they get into the league being little more than high schoolers who backpack their way through Europe or whatever, as a little breakaway from high school. And, physically and mentally being, in most cases, unsuited to come in and play a lot. There are exceptions, right? Weissman's looking good. We had Luka a couple of years. He didn't. He's not from here, but but there's a handful of guys who come in and are physically and mentally set up to play and play well and play a lot. But those guys are the exception, not the rules. And there'd be more of them if guys spent 3 or 4 years in college like they used to. But that ship has sailed. That's never coming back. The top players, the top 10 to 12 players, probably forever, are mostly going to be one and done guys. So that means they're all projects. Like, this is where the NBA is still a little different from the NFL, where generally teams want to wait on a guy that they know is a project. Of course, in baseball, they're kind of all projects too, or at least the guys that come straight out of high school. But, he's just, like I said, he's sort of the crystallization, the guy who best shows when people say, oh, what's wrong with the NBA? They kind of point to him. And it's not entirely fair, but it's kind of fair. I mean, in that guys like him and to a slightly lesser extent Ben Simmons show you how different the game is now, because somebody would have said to that guy at some point while he was at UCLA or wherever Ben Simmons would have gone, if he'd spent 2 or 3 years or 4 years in college, if he'd gone to Seton Hall or wherever it is, he would have, Texas or wherever it was, it ended up. Somebody would have said, "Oh, wait, we got to fix that." No. You can't make your entire living off of layups and putbacks, So you're a great player, but you could be so much better if you at least developed something of an offensive game where you could score at least 19 feet out. So things would have happened differently if these guys. There's no way he could have been at Duke for 3 years and not have picked up some things. So yeah, that's where I am on him.
Well, let me throw something in there real quick? See,
sure.
Now this is something, Bill, that I know that you know, but you've probably forgotten. Ben Simmons played a year at LSU.
He did sort of kind of thing.
But
I watched it.
But exactly what you're saying is, what did you learn in a year when you knew you weren't trying to play there? You weren't thinking about playing at LSU. It was just, someone recruited me. My dad knew somebody. He went to, he knew this from that. I'll go to LSU and I'll go on the NBA. Right. You're not trying to learn anything there. And then, by the way, the gentleman from UCLA, I think it was TJ Leaf. I know you remember TJ Leaf, don't you?
Oh, yeah. God. I'd forgotten about him until just this very moment.
and he's still playing with the Pacers, averaging 3 points and 2 rebounds a game.
Nice.
So, over his career, right? But the point of what you're saying is exactly what it is. If, for example, let's just use Lonzo Ball as an example from where we're going to go from here. So he's now in his 4th year. He played a year of college, kind of. Now, if you're Zion Williamson coming to the Pelicans, this is the guy you're leaning on to teach you about the NBA. Wow. You used to come in the league and you would have to lean on hey, I need to learn how to be a tough guy from Charles Oakley. Okay, Charles Oakley played Division II, but for 4 years. All right, I need to learn how to run the point, and I'm Steve Nash, and I'm learning, or Jason Kidd, I'm learning from Steve Nash and Kevin Johnson and all that. Wow, I'm going to learn from the best. I'm going to learn from somebody not only just the best, but somebody's been in the league like AC Green that's been in the league for 12 years, and I get to sit next to AC Green every day. What are you learning from Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, any of these guys that are, and again, not to knock what they can do on the court, but they don't even know how to get their own mail, let alone show you how to, what compound interest is and how do you spend your per diem and what are we doing on the road and, how do we take care of ourselves nutritionally. I'm on the road. Hey, great. I got per diem. Let's go to McDonald's. No, you can't do that, son. You got to hire a personal chef. Who do I learn that from? The head guy doesn't know. I don't know how he knows, so he doesn't know. And it's a never-ending cycle, like you said. The one and dones keep coming in, and the one and dones keep going and going and going. And if we go back to the college part of it, this is where we're at, I believe, with Kentucky and Duke right now. There's no one to teach them other than Calipari how to play or Coach K, but they don't have that guy during the downtime. And they don't have that contact with your coach during the season now because of the pandemic. So who are you going to learn from to get you to the next level? There's nobody. You're making it up on your own. And especially when you have that, excuse what you're saying, but me as well, that AAU mentality that I'm a star. Everyone has me pegged as a star. I don't have to listen to you. You're a college coach. I don't have to listen to you. You're a high school coach. I don't even have to listen to the GM and the coach who drafted me. I've been a star for the last 5 years. I know better than you because everyone's told me I'm great. I've never heard anybody tell you you're great. Danny Ainge, what did you ever accomplish as a player? I don't even know who you are. Doc Rivers, did you play? Never saw you play at all. Who are you? You're an old man. You don't know what you're talking about. Quinn Snyder, I never saw you play. Who are you? Because you're living in that moment now. I'm a star. I've been told I'm a star since I was 12 years old. The NBA is mine. The NBA is ours. We're going to take the NBA over by storm. So, yeah, I agree with you.
Bill, let's talk about the effect on Zion. We've touted him as, like you said, being this great player. But when you look at, his actual play,
I love that look.
It's, what do you think, Bill? Zion, does he need a teacher, or is this going to be another Anthony Davis experiment in New Orleans?
Well, as you might remember, I was one of those people that kind of pumped the brakes on Zion even back when we first started talking about him. And not because he isn't super talented, because he is super talented. And he has the ability to be an absolute superstar. But he has we talked about this, a very unusual body type. And the way he plays isn't super conducive to a 20-year career or a 15-year career, because there's a lot of impact in the way that he plays basketball. Now, I think that will change over time. I think he will become a better ball handler and perimeter player and things like that. And he's started hitting threes. But there's never been anyone exactly like him. Like, there's other guys who kind of sort of – the guys who've been built like him haven't been as good for the most part. I mean, Gary Trent wasn't a superstar. You know what I mean? Like, the guys who kind of looked like him didn't really play like him.
Shaq of the Mac? No.
Yes, Shaq of the Mac, baby. I was a huge fan of his too. But it's hard to project exactly what his career is going to look like, because he is different from – the closest I could come to was Larry Johnson. I think when we talked about him the first time, I said, the closest I can think of a player who's been built sort of like that and played sort of like that, who actually reached stardom, was Larry Johnson. And his career was shortened by back injuries, due, at least in part, to being a guy who's 6'5" and change or 6'6", who plays on the interior probably 70% of the time or so, or close to it. And so you're bumping, you're jumping while bumping, you're bumping while jumping. And the human back wasn't built for that. Like, when you're 200 and whatever, let's call him LeBron, whatever, what does he weigh now? 270 something?
270 something, yeah.
Yeah, I know. I think I read somewhere he was like something like the second or third heaviest player in the league, which is a little concerning because he's not super tall for the NBA. So I'm not one of those people that was 100% all in. Now, he's played better than I thought he would, and he's going to be a superstar. I'll look like a fool, but he still scares me. I'm still a little bit worried. If I'm building a franchise around him, I'm doing it nervously, to be perfectly honest. But the good news is that he's a super hard worker. He's a great kid, high character. So all my concerns about him are basically just physical stuff. I have no doubt about him as a person, a human being. I think he's going to do everything possible to be better. The issue also is, we talked about it, where he is. This is a franchise that has thus far been almost like a farm team for better franchises. And so it's hard, if you're a young superstar, to get excited about playing for a team that you kind of sort of is thinking in a couple of years is going to be shopping you. So I like him as a player. I'm worried about the physical stuff I just mentioned. And he's on a team where I can't help but think in 2 or 3 years they're going to say that they're not shopping him, which means that they're at least willing to listen to offers.
Right.
Well, go ahead and finish the thought, Frank.
Well, I said the same thing. I saw that smattering of time he had at Duke, and I went, I don't see what everyone else sees. I see an unbelievable athlete that has some combine skills, but I don't see a great basketball player. Now, again, first year, 1 year in college, he's supposed to develop that. Where's he going to develop it from? My comparison body type was Larry Johnson or Anthony Mason, which people said before. My comparison playing-wise was Antoine Jameson, because it was catch, turn, and throw and hope that you're quicker than everybody else is before they get off the ground or realize what you're doing, you know. And I remember making that comparison when that draft came out. It's like, are you going to take Antoine Jameson or are you going to take Vince Carter? Well, Antoine Jameson is the player. It's like, have you seen Vince Carter? You know, but well, Antoine Jameson is the player of the year. But have you seen Vince Carter? You know, and so that's kind of where I'm looking at here. I see a guy that, and Antoine Jameson had a hell of a career. Don't get me wrong, but I see a guy that's been I don't say overhyped, but I guess that's the best way of putting it. That may not have those. Again, we're talking about where he was drafted, number one quality attributes to be a guy. My thought is when you draft a guy number one overall, he's supposed to turn things around. Not necessarily by himself, but lead you there. And I don't know if you're going to get there, I don't believe is going to be your lead player. Not that that's a bad thing. The Nets did it with Kenyon Martin a long time ago. They got to 2 finals and Kenyon Martin wasn't their lead player as the number one overall pick. It can be done, but you're going to have to bring in a lot of other guys to make it work. And as you said, can the Pelicans do that? Does anyone want to go to New Orleans? I don't know. You know, it seems like it wouldn't be a bad thing, but how many people are going to say, I see what they're doing there. Let's go join Zion and get there. They get there and go, oh, we're not joining Zion and he's going to lead us. We have to take Zion with us. And does the front office see that? You know, if you get there, do you say it's not like you have Tim Duncan coming in and David Robinson's there. It's not like you have James Worthy coming in and Kareem and Magic are there. Anymore, if you're the number one pick overall, there's usually not a lot around you. And can he take them there? I don't know. But this isn't a new thing. I was saying this before. You know, again, as Bill said, I've been wrong before, so it doesn't mean that I'm perfect on this. But this is what I was saying, you know, ahead of time. But again, he can prove me wrong, just like Lonzo can prove me wrong. I don't. Maybe to combine, they go, we know how to get it done, and maybe they bring in a support staff around them to make it work. I just don't see it happening right now.
Last topic, basketball before we move on here. Stephen A. said that Steph Curry is the Patrick Mahomes of the NBA. I think that was before the Super Bowl, but we'll talk about that again. We'll talk about that again later too. So, what's your thoughts on Stephen A. Comparing Steph Curry to Patrick Mahomes?
Just by a matter of principle on my end, the way that I usually do things, I usually say, "Oh, Stephen A. said I disagree." And usually that's the end of the conversation with me. Oh, Stephen A. said, I disagree. Now, that's not fair to Stephen A. I hear what – I don't hear what he says. I hear how he says it. And then at that point, all I hear is and that's it. So now if I take this question seriously, I think we mentioned this before. There are a certain group of people that do things that other people have never done before in a manner in which it hasn't been done before. Again, if you had seen Will Chamberlain as a 17-year-old doing, what in the world was that? You know, if you see Patrick Mahomes, you say, okay, this last game notwithstanding, well, even this, you include this last game, he made some throws and some plays that you went, how in the world did he do? Oh, he dropped the ball. How did he escape? He's doing it on a bad time. He did some things that were just otherworldly, changing the game, if so to speak. I'm not sure that Steph Curry is, oh my goodness. He is very, very, very good. And he's doing some things that we haven't seen until the next generation of players are starting to do. But I think it's more that he has the audacity to do things more than he has this other generational ability. The audacity to sit out there from 35 and knock down shots. Now you've seen other people do it too. Now, is that to say it's easy to do? No. I saw, now I'm going to go back in time here. There was a high school game that they showed on ESPN. Anybody remember Sweaty Teddy Dupay? Played at Florida. 5'1" or whatever he was, 5'10". But he came down
generously listed at 5'4", he was not 5'4".
Yeah, all right. He came down in like 5 possessions in a row, took half a step across half court, and let fly nothing but net. And you said, kid, that's not going to work in college. And it worked in college, so he got kicked off the team. He had the audacity to take shots that now, I've taken those shots just goofing around. I never tried in a game. I've taken those shots goofing around with a game of a horse with somebody. And, we were stroking from 25, 30 feet. Yeah, people can make those shots. But you don't have the audacity to take it in a game. And if you did, your coach would have went, the bench is too close. Go sit someplace else. That's not even going to happen. So and also you have to give credit to Mark Jackson and Steve Kerr to give him license to do those things as well. Has he changed the game? Yes, he's had help in doing that. But is he, and this sounds like it's a bad thing to say, but it's really not, does he have Patrick Mahomes' unbelievable ability? No. He's very good, and he does a lot of things that other people can't do, but he's not, oh my, I don't see how he did that. He just shot a ball from 35 feet. Yeah, okay, that's impressive, but he wasn't falling down with 2 guys around his ankle and threw a laser 35 yards and hit the guy in the face mask and he dropped the ball. There is a difference.
What do you think, Bill? Basketball, Jesse Jackson has pundits for Steph Curry. What do you think?
If we're going to try to make a point guard to QB comparison, I'm going to have to go old school. A better example would be a guy like Dan Fouts, who embodied a certain kind of system. And though he had really nothing super special physically at all about him. I mean, Dan Fouts had a good arm, but, he wasn't Elway. He wasn't Marino. He wasn't one of those guys that, even Jim Hart, right? He didn't have a cannon.
Right.
He did things differently enough that, he was putting up numbers, and like I said, he really fit a system beautifully. He embodied a new kind of a new kind of football that's now everywhere. And I think that's where the comparison sort of is apt, in that the game, there's kids jacking up threes on somebody's, rec court or, at some empty gym and somewhere in America from 32 feet out. That would have been just not done. I mean, there's no way kids are working on 32 footers. Just a few years ago, like 20 years ago, 15 years ago, they're not. Why? There'd be no reason for it. They might hit threes, they might work on their three, but they weren't taking those shots from, those extra 10, 12, 13 feet that you see repeatedly from Steph Curry. And then you add to that Steph has become, a close to full service guard now. I mean, he still doesn't give you a lot on the defensive end, but he's become a very respectable passer, has a good sense of angles. And, when he does play defense, he does a good job of, getting a hand in the passing lane and, being a bit of a pest, nuisance, whatever, at least defensively, though he's not exactly, it's not what you would show your kid is, hey, here's how you play, rock rib shutdown defense. But he's become, like I said, a reasonable, but like I said, for me, it's Dan Fouts, a guy who nothing you see physically makes you go, oh my God, right? But it just fits the system beautifully, operates that system at such a high level, and changed the game, because all of a sudden this game where it was run, and if you got at least 3 or 4 yards on the first 2 runs and run it again, right? If it's 3rd and 3 or less, run one more time. To a game where, you throw it on first down, you throw it on second down, and if you still don't have the first down you run on, you throw it on third down. Like that would have been just right. And sometimes on fourth. It would have been unthinkable to throw the ball as much as them just a few years before them. So that's, to me, the better comparison.
I'm going to throw a name. I've started keep interrupting. I'm going to throw a name that I remember from Sports Illustrated in Portland State.
Neil Lomax.
Neil Lomax. And we're, They're throwing the ball 40 times a game. Can the human arm withstand that? That was the thing. Now it's commonplace to throw the ball 40 times a game. And
Yeah,
we saw when Neil Lomax got to the NFL, it's like, oh, he's a quarterback.
Well, let's shift over to football. Marty Schottenheimer passed. Frank, you're an old Brown fan, so I guess you have some memories of Marty. And, of course, then he came out here to San Diego, made his mark out here. But your thoughts on Marty, Frank?
Well, I go back to, Blanton Collier and coaches in Cleveland, where it's like, okay, we had the glory days and they're gone. Then you had Sam Reticulano and the Cardiac Kids, like, okay, but that's you got that about as far as you were going to get out of that. I mean, you can only be the Cardiac Kids so often. You have to be the better team to be consistent, and they were hardly ever the better team. They were good, but they weren't fantastic. When Marty took over the team, Marty Ball, when he took over the Cleveland Browns, there was a sense that at first it was like, you got rid of Sam. I can't believe you got rid of Sam. Marty came in, and in the first few weeks of that first season, you said, this team has an identity. This team has a little swagger, and they believe they're the best team on the field. Started believing, not hoping, not wondering. You started believing that they were the best team in the league. We actually believed that. We didn't think it. We didn't hope it. We actually believed it because they went out and performed, knew what they were going to do. You knew how they were going to do it, and they were going to be very good at what they did. And it was it was fantastic. So, as an old Cleveland Browns fan, or he left or still continued coach as many years as he did after that, every year we said, why don't we have Marty? Why don't we have Marty? He personified what Cleveland football was for a generation of people. He'll be missed. Has been missed.
Bill?
This is very super sad, and for a bunch of reasons. First of all, for those who are fans of the old AFL, my dad was one of those. He always talked about watching Schottenheimer take the field, and he wore, I think, number 57. And I think he played a year, maybe two, with the old Boston Patriots before they were known as New England Patriots, and then finished up with the Buffalo Bills. And so the nameplate on the back of Marty Schottenheimer's jersey started about here, all the way across his back, and would end about here. It was glorious, and we'll never see that again. He was, I throw out the term football lifer, I guess, but
on the sleeves, right?
Could there be a more accurate description of a football lifer than Marty Schottenheimer? And all of his kids are in football. He's the definition. I'm going to rewatch the Football Life on Marty Schottenheimer and probably get a little bit sad. His teams scared me. And we used to always joke about, how that was what their goal seemed to be, like, to just get you a little bit scared and then let you off the hook. Sort of like a roller coaster, but you always get off safe at the end. But that wasn't I mean, was he conservative? Yes. The way almost every defensive-minded head coach in the history of football has been. But was he a great coach? Also, yes. And there's these little, once again, we always talk about this, but a player or two here, some of those San Diego teams, he had one, I think, went 14-2 and was just a handful of players for being a Super Bowl team.
Yeah.
I mean, the heartbreak. I mean, heartbreak that has like a name, right? You know, the drive, you know.
2 names.
Right. Oh, yeah, exactly.
And the fumble. The drive and the fumble. Right.
I mean, that's when you know it's a heartbreaking loss when it has a nickname that everyone knows. And he really deserved better. He really did. And he's a Hall of Fame coach. And it's sad that, I mean, I hope someday he makes it. The Veterans Committee should put him in at some point, but I'm sad he won't get to make it, you know, while he does get to be there with his family and enjoy it and things like that. We've lost a lot of football people, including, you know, people in our business, sports media. You know, we lost Pedro Gomez, we lost Perez Taylor, we lost Therese Paylor, and Chris Wessling in a shockingly short amount of time. It's just, and the one that obviously because of things like NFL films, because of having grown up watching the game, you know, I have so many memories of his teams, you know, and obviously that run even in Kansas City, right? I mean, those were some really good football teams he put together several times. I mean, teams where he went got better, no matter what, right? I mean, when Monty Schottenheimer shows up to coach, your team gets better. I don't know what else to say about him other than every team he ever coached, he left them in a better situation than he found.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with you there, Bill. Schottenheimer, coach, I think he should be in the Hall of Fame also. Cussed him out a few times, some of those good teams, but yeah, that's about the way it should be. Bill, do you think that the NFL should start their hiring window after the Super Bowl?
I can't remember. I think you've asked me this before. If you haven't, I apologize. I feel like I've answered this question several times. I have always said, and have said for a long, long time, they should open up a window from, you know, whatever, you know, time. So week 17, last game of the season, midnight or 11:59, you know, a.m. or whatever, or 11:59 p.m., sorry, and 59 seconds. After that last game goes final, right? And you get a 1 week window from there, and then boom, dead period until the playoffs, and including the Super Bowl over, and then we reopen it again. So you get teams that really want to get over with, have a window to just get it over with, right? We need to get this done now. You can get it done, boom. But for the teams that want to take their time and wait, now you aren't penalized for it, and the coaches aren't penalized for their teams being really good, which is so silly. So that's been my solution for a while. Every time someone asks me that question, I give that same answer. I've been doing it for a few years now. So there's a 1 week period, 11:59, 59, and 59 seconds after, you know, the last game goes final of the regular season. 1 week, boom. Then we wait until all the playoffs, including the Super Bowl, are over, and then we reopen it.
Frank, what do you think?
It's the same situation that you have in college. It's like, okay, we hired our coach or our offense coordinator or whatever, or he's the offensive coordinator for this team, and can he coach in the bowl game? No, we need him right away. Do you really? How much work is getting done in those 3 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever that couldn't be waited? You couldn't wait to do until after the Super Bowl. Or you say, let's make the deal, and you still stay in place. As Bill said, you have that window before the playoffs or however you want to look at it and say, okay, we've interviewed everybody. We've settled on this guy. Now, we may not get him for 2 or 3 weeks, but that's okay. That's where your GM has to step up and say, all right, you guys, if we're not in the playoffs, go home and do what you're supposed to do. How much is the head coach coaching during that amount of time? Is he at the Senior Bowl? He can still go to the Senior Bowl. or you send somebody else there. Or, God forbid, you film the Senior Bowl and watch it on film. You know, we're in a society where it's a rush to judgment. You know, our last election, not taking sides on it, but the election happened on this day. The inauguration happens a month and a half later. Why? Because that's the way it's always been. But shouldn't the president start the next day? Well, he could, but how much is it going to get done in a month? We can still have the other guy in there. And, you know, if you are the new head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, do you have to do anything today? How much is Urban Meyer doing right now that's going to affect that team next season? Is he laying the groundwork? Yes, he is. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure he is. I'm sure he started that very first day. But if they decided they wanted to bring in, for example, Eric Bieniemy, they couldn't get him until last Monday, would it have made that huge of a difference? So do we delay it because it's not fair to two guys or two teams, I guess I should say? It could have been, you know, Spagnuolo. It could have been somebody. It could have been Todd Bowles. Who knows? But is it fair to make them have to wait, or is it fair to make everyone else have to wait until those two teams are done? It's got to be a universal thing. Like, I think Bill has the perfect idea. You have a window, and then you say, all right, moratorium is now until Super Bowl. Everything else is regulated. Why not that?
Wow, Frank, you took me off on a tangent there, so I got to stay with you.
Okay.
We talk about Urban Meyer's Jacksonville Jaguars, and then he hires Chris Dolan. Your thoughts?
Here's the thing.
I remember that. Here's the thing.
No, the thing that I'm going to say about Urban Meyer is he's going to do what he wants to do the way he wants to do it. So if he thinks that he made the right call, and I'm assuming they gave him carte blanche to do whatever he wants to do, hey, that you're not going to change that. So good or bad, right or wrong, whatever, he's going to do what he's going to do. That's what they brought him in to do. He has that pedigree, so they believe that he can do no wrong. And, you know, he hasn't – so far he's proven that he's a winner. So I don't think you're going to be able to doubt, or maybe you can doubt afterwards. You can second-guess what he's doing. But when he makes a move, he's made it for a reason that he thinks is the best thing to do. Whether anyone else believes it or not, irregardless. Which isn't a word, but whatever.
Bill, you had some very strong words about Mr. Dolan when he got fired in Iowa. So, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, the good news is that these are grown men, and they are less likely to bite their tongues if you say or do something that's out of pocket. Plus,
yeah,
I mean, no offense, but they can buy and sell you 8 to 10 times over. A lot of them. That doesn't happen. That's not the same. I mean, that's not a situation in college. You have more power, obviously, at the collegiate level, and he's going to find, you know, well, one is I believe he's probably made some changes. But if for some reason there's anything even remotely resembling another flare-up, yeah, he's going to be, you know, gone. You know, sadly, those guys are easily replaced, and they're replaced quite often, unfortunately. Most people would have trouble naming 3 strength coaches, and as important as strength coaches are in the NFL. You know, I think some people know John Lott, you know, because of his combine nickname thing, but I mean, it's, you know, and they might be able to name, you know, now we have a woman, you know, they might be able to name her, you know, congratulations, Tampa Bay, but most people would really struggle to name 3 strength coaches. So he's going to have to, you know, like I said, tread more lightly. But he's, you know, I believe that he's, you know, what they want. They clearly have a certain team mindset they're trying to establish. And sometimes you go after a guy who's kind of a psycho to tell people this is what we're going to be establishing. We're going to be a little bit nuts here.
Right.
And we're going to, try to intimidate and throw our weight around and whatever term you want to use. And, hey, is Richie Incognito available? So that's just a decision that some teams make. And, if it works, they're geniuses. And if it doesn't, they're not.
Boy, you guys just lead me right into the next questions. I really love that. Bill, since you said that, you talk about, how things work for some teams and how they don't. Hindsight.
All right.
Tom Brady really wanted to go to the 49ers, not the Bucks. What's your thoughts on that, Bill, of the 49ers kicking themselves in the butt?
Right. The 49ers were set up even all the nice things you can say about Tampa Bay, you can say most of them about the 49ers with the exception of maybe the receiving talent, but they've got the edge goes to them every place else. They have a slightly more offensive line talent, slightly more defensive line talent. Secondary is about a push. Linebackers, okay, that one goes to Tampa Bay. But most of the other things, Gronk's fun to watch, but Kittle's is better. Like there's, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of things if you just stack the teams up side by side where you would give the edge to the 49ers. I love Bruce Arians, but people, essentially look upon Kyle Shanahan as if he is, the young offensive version of Belichick. A guy that almost walks on water as a game planner. So I think he would have succeeded in San Francisco. And obviously it was a team, for whom he rooted growing up and yada, yada, all the things that people want to throw out there. And next it's going to be, in a year or two that it's going to be Aaron Rodgers are speculating about, going to play for the team for whom he rooted as a child or whatever. But, that stuff doesn't matter. The NFL GMs and coaches, they don't care about neat storylines. Like they couldn't care less about stuff like that. They're trying to win football games. And it's harder to win football games in the NFL than I think all the other leagues combined because so many things have to go right to win a football game. And so many things can go wrong even when you dominate a team that you can end up losing. It's just so hard. So obviously it worked out for Mr. Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. He's doing okay where he landed.
Hindsight, Frank?
Saying when he went to Tampa Bay. You brought in an old guy to play quarterback on a team that potentially could be okay. You can get the job done with what we have. We have 3 quarterbacks on the roster that are sufficient. And let's look at this another way. Let's say TB12 ends up in San Francisco with your offensive or your defensive line decimated, your running backs decimated. Tom Brady's on that team. How does he make them better? Or does he make them better? Are they now Super Bowl contenders because Tom Brady's there? Without your pass rush, without your, what did they lose? 3 offensive linemen throughout the course of the season? 3 starters, 3 Pro Bowl caliber players? All the things that happened in San Francisco. We can second guess the Bay's roster now. Look at what they did. You have, let's just look at the receiving corps. Brought in Gronkowski to shore that up. Gronkowski wasn't supposed to be the star, but he was supposed to be that between one and the other. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, not too bad before they got there. You brought in AB. You have Scotty Miller. You have Cameron Brate. You have Ronald Jones III. You have Leonard Fournette. These are all talented players. I'm not saying they would have got there with Jameis, and I'm not saying they got there because of Tom Brady. I'm just saying that there was a lot of talent vendors that they had to go. It's easy to say it would have worked because he's Tom Brady, and it may have because he's Tom Brady. Doesn't mean that it's going to be a positive end. So I don't know.
Let's see. Do you think that Odell Beckham Jr. could possibly end up with the Bucs next year, Frank?
There's no telling. I know that's not a good answer, but there's no telling. You have a team on the rise, and here's where we find out. And we don't know because we don't know the guy. We know what we hear. We know what we think we see. But here's where we find out. Does he want to play on a team where he can be a very good opponent to a team that wants to win and wants to improve and can do
Frank may have froze on us permanently there for a minute. We were lagging a little bit behind. Bill, what's your thoughts on Odell Beckham ended up possibly in Tampa Bay next year?
I think there's 0% chance that happens, first of all. This is that period of time when you're going to hear some of the craziest stuff about things that are absolutely positively not going to happen. But, guys and gals who are in the league, like the writers are out there, they have to find stories. And sometimes you want to find a story that's different from the story they're already writing. So now you've got to find an isolated population, or you got to find somebody who hasn't been interviewed to death, about the things everybody's talking about, So I think that there's pretty much no chance, like I said. I mean, I think there'll be a couple more players that'll be moved before, we get through the initial period, or, guys. I mean, a lot of teams have clauses in their contract where nothing has to happen before the 1st of June or whatever. So there's still time for teams to figure out what they want to do in terms of, the women that they have, with them or around them, or things like that. And some of them will simply be let go. But most of them, we put to work in some sort of capacity. We have sort of a similar thing happening now, right? You're going to put a lot of stuff out there, right? Sort of, throw it all up, right? And hey, what if so-and-so, blah, blah, blah? What if such and such? What if this team moves on with the quarterback they drafted high last year? I mean, you're going to see all that stuff. It's not going to happen. It's like they're not understanding that teams can't afford to keep investing a bunch of high-round draft picks in the same position. First of all, especially quarterback, because just monetary reasons. Like, there's only so much cap space to go around. You can't have a couple of top 5 picks at the quarterback position. We can only play one quarterback at a time. So a lot of this crazy stuff we're going to see out there is just that, James. It's crazy stuff. People just, there's not a lot else to write about if you're a football writer.
Well, we always talk about, the old chicken or the egg argument. And I thought I'd make it a little special today. Bill, chicken or the egg, Tom or Bill?
Well, this is an easy one. I mean, I guess if the egg is Belichick, I don't know. I'm not sure how the question works, but
Well, you can do it either way you want. I mean, the chicken just lays the egg and then basically
Well, I
sits
guess
on
the
it.
chicken.
And
Well,
then,
then the chicken. I guess the chicken is Belichick. Whatever. The point is that if it weren't for Bill Belichick listening to his quarterback coach, if it wasn't for Bill Belichick saying, "I'm going to carry a fourth string quarterback," I didn't say third, fourth string quarterback who is not active for a single game this season, which means sacrificing depth at offensive line or sacrificing depth on special teams, and he loves special teams, but he's willing to sacrifice a position somewhere on his roster of a player that could have contributed to carry a fourth-string quarterback. Then none of this ever happens. I believe he would have had some level of success almost anywhere he went. But he doesn't have that kind of success with any other team, with any other culture. And now he's taken at least a part of that culture with him when he goes someplace different because it's such a strong culture. So to me, that's an easy one.
Is it that easy for you, Frank?
Okay, my history is a little bit different. My history with Bill Belichick is him tearing down and imploding the Cleveland Browns. My history is with Tom Brady is being the non-starter or splitting time on a Michigan team that had Drew Henson and Scott Dreisbach and other forgettable names. To me, it's not a chicken and egg. It's when did the egg split? When did the cell split? That's what it is. Because you have two people that were not successful in to become successful together. Or however you want to put it. So I don't go it proves this year that Brady goes to Tampa Bay and wins, and the Patriots go in the toilet. It was inevitable at some point when you have defections and decimations like they had. So at the same time, a certain surgery, they how long or not, it was Phil Jackson or Michael Jordan, or even more accurately, Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. If Scotty's not there, do they win? You can make the case that Michael Jordan being supposedly the greatest player ever, they do. But if Doug Collins is there, do they get there? You just can't really say. It's a really hard thing to figure out. But I don't know. This is not the way I'm supposed to answer this question. I'm supposed to give you a definitive.
Well, there's actually no.
If Tom Brady. Well, true, but I don't know if Tom Brady becomes good if Belichick doesn't believe in him. But I don't want Tom Brady to believe.
So you're kind of giving Belichick a little credit for Tom's cockiness there. Huh? Okay, all right. I can deal with that.
I'm sorry,
Frank. I'm going to come back. Let's see.
Yeah.
Bill.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Frank, if you're still there, this week's
I'm hoping.
this year's Super Bowl had the smallest TV audience since 2006. It's in the middle of a pandemic. Only got a limited crowd, 25,000. Frank, were you surprised when you heard the numbers?
Yes. I don't know how closely people follow. I guess we'd have to go back and see what the ratings were like for the rest of the season to see if the ratings were down all season. I don't know that. I think part of it is that the Super Bowl is an event more so than a game. I'm not dropping names or patting myself on the back here, but a few years ago, I was doing things with sports bars and whatever, and I actually was interviewed in the Wall Street Journal that asking me about whether people watching and going to sports bars and whatever. And with all the research that I'd done, which was talking to 3 people, I gave an answer that got quoted in the Wall Street Journal. But the idea being that it is an event more so than a game. And if you can't get people to go to some place to watch the game, a lot of the people that watch, so viewership was host party. So if you are that couple that goes to Joe and Steve's Super Bowl party, but your wife isn't gonna let you watch the Super Bowl at home, that kind of thing.
Bill, your thoughts on this small TV audience for the Super Bowl? Usually, Super Bowl has the highest rankings of any game during the season. What's your thoughts? What happened?
Well, sure. Now, as you guys may remember, and as I've mentioned in the past, I've worked for AC Nielsen before. And this is in line with the trend lines. There have been some exceptions, but the trend lines, the dominant trend lines, are saying, one, though it's not in the same dire straits that baseball's in, we've seen a gradual but steady move up in terms of the average age of fan that watches, like I said, on like an ABC affiliate. And then you add to that the other thing, of course, is just being able to write. So much of what we said just comes down to the fact that we're able to read. Life has got to be something of a mystery, which I guess in the good and bad ways of saying it, for those that don't have that hedge or that toxic sack or whatever it is, between them and, the world at large, however you want to put it. The fact is that there's so many things that go into, like I said, success, failure, whatever. There's no way of guaranteeing anything or being perfect or being whatever. But yeah, there's some definite indicators, right? Things that give you a way of seeing it, a way of having a better chance to find it.
Bill.
Yes.
A makeshift O-line for the Chiefs, or what a difference a left tackle, a center, and a right guard make. What happened?
I'll tell you really what happened. I mean, all the things you just mentioned are certainly true, but now imagine they go 2 backs or they go 2 tight ends, and they pound them for a while in the run game. They were averaging over 6 yards a carry in the run game. And they force them out of that cover 2 shell because they're just, going up and down the field slowly but surely, killing the clock and gaining yards and even putting up some points. The other thing that would have happened is, people keep gushing over Thomas Edward Patrick Brady, but it's not the NBA since he can't come out on the court or come out onto the field if the other team has possession. If they'd taken advantage of the fact that in those looks that the Patriots were in, they were inviting you to run the football. And when they did, they had success, but they got away from it. They refused. And I understand they fell down by a fair number of points very quickly. But because they did it quickly, you didn't have to panic. You could have leaned heavy on the run game, and then when they finally changed up personnel and finally changed up their alignments and assignments to account for the fact that some of the people you're lining up, at tight end or like whatever, are just killing whoever it is that's trying to cover them. Now you catch, those players in a place they don't want to be. Covering someone who's a terrific receiver. So, frankly, they got out coached, and I just was astonished, blown away by how little this Super Bowl team, the Chiefs, were supposed to be, and were to a certain extent, but they did not show all the things that got them there. And I don't know, people talk about nerves, whatever. I can't say why it was, but the defense had dictated to them, here's how, if you want to win, here's how to do it. And they refused to be disciplined enough to stick to it.
Do you agree with that, Frank? Kansas City held without a touchdown? Really? I can see you nod your head.
Right, exactly. Here's go back to the great show on turf. That group that set the world on fire for, and I'm trying. Say back to the great show on turf. Mike Martz wasn't willing to do the little things. They were the big wins on the field. Maybe we need that 3-yard run from there. They were unwilling to do what the Buccaneers were giving them. And that's where they just kept getting themselves in a deeper and deeper hole.
Let's see, where do we go from here? Frank, I'm going to try to stick with you here. Maybe, we just lost Frank there. Okay, so Bill, Gronk, AB, they scored 3 of the 4 Bucks touchdowns. Was this a tribute to Bruce or a finger to Bill?
I mean, I don't think it was really either one, but it's taking advantage of a look or something that happened in coverage. But here's what I will say. I mean, I don't think, you can build a game plan where you're looking at opportunities to piss off someone who doesn't even play in the game, right? So no, I don't think that has anything to do with that. It really is, like I said, breakdowns in coverage, and I don't want to pick on Rashad Breeland. He had a pretty darn good season, but he had some real struggles in that Super Bowl. I think that there's lots of things you can point to. For me, like I said, the main thing to point to is on offense. Like I said, the adjustments they didn't make, and on defense. I mean, the defense didn't play terribly, but there were definitely some opportunities to get off on 3rd down, and they negated those opportunities through, of all things, penalties, poorly timed, and sometimes just emotional, silly penalties. But no. They weren't like, okay, we're going to run this play in hopes that we're going to get to give a finger to Bill Belichick, who may or may not be watching the game. I just don't think teams can't think that way.
Okay, Frank, maybe teams can't think that way, but what about your QB? As I was saying, 3 or 4 touchdowns, 2 to Gronk, 1 to AB. All these guys former Patriots at one time. Or in the case of AB, this is the second time he's taken him under his wing. So I mean, maybe just in the back. What do you think, Frank? Like I said, was that a tribute to Bruce getting, calling plays to getting
Well,
those guys
I
open?
think
Go ahead.
I think what we do in general, I think, is, and I think Bill touched on it, we try and find something that's there that's not there. And when you're on the field, it's like saying you're getting jobbed by an official. He blew that call on purpose. The game goes too fast for that. If you're the play caller, you're making the calls that work or you think are going to work. You're not saying, and by the way, take that, Bill Belichick. I don't think that you have the ability to do that. There's too much happening in the course of a game to be. Now, you may have been thinking that beforehand and afterwards, but at the heat of the moment, you're going, you know what? I'm going to show you. I don't even think that guys in baseball, because of what happened 3 weeks ago, as opposed to, oh, he's standing on top of the plate, I got to move him. Now, there may be some residual effects of something that's happened before, but I think in the heat of the battle of what's going on, you just don't do that. Now, like you said, there is something to that there may have been something after the fact that you went, aha, that'll show you. But I don't think during the game you're thinking that. I don't think that there's too much. You're trying to win the game. You're trying to make the play. And if Gronk is the best option, if he's open, and we know this with Tom Brady, he's going to find the open guy. He's not going to try and squeeze it into somebody just because that's what he should do. So, I disagree with it being a finger to Bill, but at the end, oh yeah, after it's over, sure.
Yeah. Hey, you know how we are. We try to find something to make that story, as we had said earlier.
Sure.
I thought it was, kind of like that chicken and egg thing.
Yeah.
So what do we call this, Frank? What, 6 with the Patriots, now 1 with the Bucks? I mean, was this a comeback? What do you call this?
Where was he last year? I don't know if it's a comeback. It's where was he last year? He didn't have. It's not like Alex Smith. Alex Smith is a comeback.
Okay.
This is I moved to another location and continued excellence. And again, if he had gone to the 49ers, we would be saying next year is going to be a comeback. He went to a good situation, smart man, smart team picked him up, and if he had stayed in New England, you might be saying next year's going to have to be a comeback. Sometimes you just get to the right situation at the right time, and I think that's it. Now, and Bill mentioned this earlier, talking about LeBron and Brady. Can he sustain this over the course of time? Will he start looking like George Blanda out there anytime soon? You would assume. But I haven't seen it, so I would expect more of the same.
Well, let's see. Basically, that team's going to, I think, stay together. They don't have a lot of cap issues, so it's possible that we could see some of the Bucks and we could see some improvements. Frank, you've had some problems tonight, but why don't you give us your final thoughts on the Super Bowl and your final thoughts for the evening?
Well, the Super Bowl obviously played out just like we said it would. Oh, wait, no, that was another show I said that about. Look, I think we all had the right ideas, and I think we all had the right thoughts. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers played it was something when I got cut off before I was trying to finish. When you look at the greatest show on turf that St. Louis had, that we are explosive, we are going to score wherever we want to, and Mike Martz didn't make adjustments when he needed to make adjustments. He was the head coach. That's what happened this time. Kansas City wasn't able to realize they couldn't score at will, and they weren't able to make the changes they had to make, so they couldn't score. Flip side of that is, Tampa Bay said, yeah, the defense of Kansas City was like, we held them to 31. That's usually enough, and let's look at the last few touchdowns. It was just when the game was out of hand. So I think the defense kind of did what we expected them to. It's just that Tampa Bay's defense said, we're not going to allow you to do this, and Kansas City didn't capitalize on what they could have done. So I thought it was a good game for what it was. I think we showed that it's smart toughness, which what I wanted to say about Marty Schottenheimer was he was a smart, tough guy. All players, you have to be a smart guy and a tough guy at the same time. But my final thoughts go to the reaction to the passing of Pedro Gomez, ESPN baseball analyst. Whenever someone passes unexpectedly, it's tough. But when you see it happen, and we know writers and reporters can be cynical, and some of it is not genuine when we actually say, oh, I'm so sorry, blah, blah, blah. When it happened so suddenly, and even though he wasn't, a reaction amongst the people at ESPN was like, this guy was a good guy. He did his job well. He may not have been well known as a lot of people, but he was a rock for what we did, and we really liked this man. We really loved this man. And it's, as Bill said, we're seeing more and more people passing in weird and odd ways now. But to see the reaction of a group of people, we all been around writers and reporters. Excuse me. Like we said, we've been toughened by things, and we ask tough questions, and we sometimes we're cynical. We sometimes don't trust. But to see that they were genuinely affected by this man, it gives me hope for all of us that, yeah, there are good people in the world, and we don't need to lose good people. But if we do, at least we respect me.
Well, Frank, as always, we thank you for your time, my man, and we look forward to having you again next week talking. Hey, maybe we'll talk about who hit the longest ice ball this week, or maybe one of the pitchers will throw a snowball instead of a baseball or something. So
that would be interesting. Thank you, gentlemen.
So, all right, you have a good night, Frank.
Thanks, guys.
Bill.
Yes.
Your final thoughts, your thoughts on the Super Bowl, and your final thoughts for the evening.
Well, okay, so I guess starting with the Super Bowl, for the first time in a very long time, I saw Patrick Mahomes look like a young quarterback. Of course, that was mostly because he was under almost unending constant pressure. And, we talked about the injuries. We talked about Dr. Laurent Duvernay-Tardif spending this year fighting COVID-19 as part of the Canadian public health system. We've talked about other things, but for me, it really came down to the lack of poise you saw, particularly on defense, of all things, earlier in the game, where they kept giving additional opportunities to a team that certainly didn't need them, and then adding to that things that they did to take points off the board. But the biggest thing, and I said it before and I'll say it again, like I said, is not taking advantage of all those yards they could have had in the running game and holding on to the game. At least, what do they win? Who knows? But it's like would have been a much closer game and fewer hits on your quarterback. And then my final thoughts do go out to the friends, the family members, the survivors, the co-workers, and all those who got to work with Pedro Gomez and had the opportunity, to work with Therese Paler and had the chance to work with Chris Wessling. All of them giants in their industry, all of them terrific human beings, all of them, the kind of people that upon meeting you would treat you in many cases as if they'd known you for years and years. It's just so difficult with everything that's happening to also to lose these people who are, essentially just in their primes in many cases, and to not be able to explain with any sort of real prediction or any precision about, players that they wrote about, interviewed, and had in their own, circle and everything. We must remind ourselves to be kind. We must remind ourselves to take advantage of opportunities when they come. We must remind ourselves that tomorrow is not promised. And that is my final thought.
Well, you have a great week, Bill, and look forward to talking to you again next week.
Yes, sir.
My final thoughts for the evening. Glad to have sports back, and we enjoyed the football season. At least I did. It's always good to end the season with a somewhat of a surprise, which Super Bowl 55 certainly was. Hey. Great sporting event, as Frank mentioned. We in the age of COVID, there aren't going to be a lot of events like we used to have. I remember when going to a championship fight used to be an event. You went and got your new duds. Some guys you even got a brand new car. It was. When you just look back at some of the great fights, Hitman Hearns and Marvin Hagler, Sugar Ray Leonard and Hearns. You can look at some of the fights that happened back. Some of the casinos don't even exist anymore, but you look back at those great fights. So events are something that we've learned how to somehow handle them a little bit different nowadays. I guess it's because of the age of social media, but I do miss those great sporting events where everybody, put on their finest, and it was kind of like, for want of another word, kind of like a peacock parade. To see, you wanted to look the best for your peers, and then you would look for those news shots. But sporting events might slowly becoming a thing of the past, especially when you look at great events like the Super Bowl. So, had a great football season. Looking forward to the next one. And, let's see how this NBA thing is going to play out in ice ball. We'll talk about it again next week.
Yes,
Have a great night, everyone. Talk to you next week.
Take care, James.
Yeah.